sustainability. And I think that you get a sense of Bob Zellick's passion for this topic. He's talked about it many, many times to his management team in the last few years. Tigers, of course, are an iconic animal in Asian countries, but as a child, I also knew tigers. As a little girl growing up in New York City, some of my best friends were tigers. You see here Tony the tiger, who was the whimsical cereal box mascot, whose face I saw every morning as I was eating my breakfast. There was then Tigger, the very upbeat and bouncy character from Winnie the Pooh, who was a personification of having a positive and upbeat attitude towards life. And then finally, there is Hobbs, the energetic and sardonic tiger from the cartoon strip Calvin and Hobbes. It's interesting that the authors all chose tigers to represent and personify positive qualities that they wanted children to learn about. And these tigers still remain with me. The world is actually looking to the people in this room to determine whether tigers will continue to exist in real life or whether they'll vanish into legend, heirlooms of a bygone age in books, photographs, and cartoon strips. We're very encouraged and impressed by those of you who have chosen to come to Kathmandu, and you are the keys to helping to sustain the tigers in the world. It would be unthinkable that this most majestic of species would disappear. It would be such a great loss for the planet, for all of us, but perhaps most importantly, part of the canary in the coal mine that signals trouble for ecosystems in the world. After all, tigers stand at the very top of the food chain. But unfortunately, as Bob Zellick mentioned in his speech, tigers in the wild have fallen from an estimated 100,000 in the beginning of the 20th century to less than 3,500 today. I understand that Nepal has about 120 adult tigers left. This is a crisis, and the World Bank has joined hands with all of you as part of the Global Tiger Initiative to try to halt this alarming decline. We need to find ways to bring wildlife conservation and biodiversity needs into the development agenda in a manner that helps people in the developing world continue to grow their economies, but without losing the precious treasures of life that biodiversity gives. This requires a new way of thinking about development, a new development paradigm that is about sustainable growth, not just growth. Tigers are just a symptom of a larger trend where species are destroyed and lost forever as a consequence of economic and population growth. But we hope that this need not be a zero-sum game, a choosing between species such as tigers and economic growth. So we wonder, are there other mechanisms would align the interests of those who live very far away and look at pictures of tigers in books and comic strips with those who live in local communities who are actually responsible and have a role to play in their continued survival? Are there ways that saving tigers can also be part of economic growth? We hope that your deliberations during this workshop will help identify some concrete measures and actions that must be taken to reverse this trend. Nepal's future development and the development of the tiger range countries represented here must be built on a strong tradition of maintaining natural assets and recognizing their value in the lives of people. Once they're gone forever. Kathmandu is critical to this effort as we move towards 2010, the Year of the Tiger, and the Tiger Summit, which will be hosted in Russia. We hope that we can look back on this event and remember it as the time in which some practical and deliberate steps to save the tiger began. That this was the beginning of a tipping point in which the world actually joined hands and said, no, this must be stopped. I understand that actually there was some progress made even yesterday, which is very comforting. That is that Nepal has agreed to host and establish a secretariat to move this process forward. and basically help to implement the suggestions that are made today. So the world is looking to you for solutions. What can be done to stop the killing and save the species? For being able to save the tiger also gives an indication, as the slogan of this conference states, of our ability to save diverse ecosystems as our population grows. Is this just an idle dream? Are we just whistling in the dark? What would it take? Or will future generations learn about tigers through photographs and pictures of what used to be? I hope you agree upon some solutions that are doable and practicable and that receive the support of the countries that are represented today. The future of our tigers depend on it. Thank you very much and welcome.
I would like now to invite our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Hemantaraj Mishra, the founder of the National Park System for Nepal, and also the author of Soul of the Rhino. So, ladies and gentlemen, the much-awaited keynote address.
In 1994, Time magazine predicted that the tiger was doomed. Asia Week and the Far Eastern Economic Review were not behind in forecasting the fate of the tiger. Back in the 1980s, we were told that the wild tiger will be extinct by the end of the 20th century. Yet, tigers are still around us. They survived the prophecy of the pundits of doom and gloom, proving that the tiger, the world's largest wildcat, is indeed a very resilient animal. Ironically, the Asia Week and the Far Eastern Economic Review went bankrupt and became extinct in the media markets. However, the question we must ask is, would the tiger have survived without the efforts of national governments who are represented in this room today? Likewise, what would have been the fate of the tiger without the support of national and international NGOs? How about the role of the private sector through tourism in demonstrating the value of live tigers in generating revenue and creating jobs? While our gathering here today proves that the doomsayers were wrong, yet we should not dismiss their dire prediction, but look back and ask, did our efforts of the last 40 years merely delay the inevitable? Are we only buying time? How long can we sustain the efforts to save the tiger in the 21st century, a century of conflict, a century dogged by food hunger and wood hunger, a century polarized by conflicting choices and priorities between the East and the West, and the North and the South, a century driven by economic and infrastructure development at any cost to the society and to the environment, a century dogged by poaching, habitat destruction, and climate change, and above all, a century that commenced with an unprecedented rate of consumption and illicit trade on tiger bones, and tiger body parts. Some of our colleagues have often questioned, how long can we protect the tiger, solely relying on the conventional efforts based on governments, guards, and guns? Are they adequate to face the challenges in the 21st century? Yet, we can dismiss the conventional methods of wildlife preservation at the tiger's peril. The harrowing happenings in the tiger land demonstrates that we should mend and not end the conventional methods against poaching and habitat destruction. The tiger is in a crisis now, and this is not the time to relax, but to strengthen and enforce rigid protection, particularly anti-poaching and fighting against transboundary trade in body parts of the tiger, an act which the national government is better equipped than international NGOs. We must stop the bleeding of the tiger numbers in the wild at any cost. Last month, I was shocked by the prediction made